misinformation. Well, Andrew, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that you're just doing your thing out there, but I do question you, man, because I mean, you literally just gave misinformation to a massive audience, probably 90+% of which, if not 99%, are not going to go fact check what you just said. I'm still finding the Trump assassination attempt to be a very intriguing topic, recent event, inquiry that clearly more and more information is coming out, and there are a lot of questions. A lot of people, reasonably so, are questioning the official narrative and wondering if there could be more to the story, if this could be some kind of conspiracy of one form or another. And I think that this issue is actually very important, and it's related to the UFO topic and other topics having to do with government cover-ups, secrets, conspiracies, because it's something that just happened. It's something out there for all to process and deal with, and there are just these glaring absurdities and inconsistencies in how it went down that really are hard to explain with mundane, ordinary explanations. You can look at my last video where I go into more depth about those. You can look at any number of videos that are now on YouTube or other platforms, even in the media, that are questioning how could this have happened, right? Now, the focus of this video is going to be specifically on what just yesterday, former CIA agent Andrew Bustamante here said about the Trump assassination attempt on one of these huge YouTube channels, almost 1 million subscribers. Now, if you know Andrew Bustamante, you've probably seen him around on YouTube. He goes on all the big, massive YouTube platforms. I mean, he's basically been on all of them as this kind of CIA agent authority information figure. And that's important, because look, there's a lot of people on YouTube, millions and millions of people watching these clips, these interviews. And so the average person is going to listen to him, see his credentials and go, oh, well, this is what a CIA agent said. So, that's got to take that word for it. But the problem is, and we're going to see it in this video, what Bustamante says about the Trump shooting is basically just misinformation. We're gonna see how we can basically prove that against him. And it calls into question, are these CIA agents that have this, that are on all these massive YouTube channels, are they really just speaking at free rein as a former agent? Or are they still working for the CIA unofficially and, doing the CIA's bidding by appearing as, a bona fide CIA authority in the YouTube podcast space to, toe a certain line and give a certain narrative and image that the CIA wants, depending on what the issue is and so forth. How plausible is that? Well, there are a number of books that you can read and other research publications about this history. I'm showing you one here on the screen this is a book called Spooked, and this is a kind of a nice light read, but 126 pages. But what it does is it gives you a detailed, concrete body of examples throughout history of how the CIA has put plants and had people kind of both officially and unofficially working for them, both within the media and in Hollywood, okay, in the mass media. And, this is just a good introduction book or an overview. There are multiple other large books done about this. There's primary source documentation. You can look at Operation Mockingbird. the Senate hearings in the 70s where the CIA director admitted that they had plants in the media. So this is nothing new. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact of history of the CIA. And so, knowing that, do we really think that they don't have anybody on YouTube or social media that is doing their bidding for them? That is, kind of working for them in one way or another to present a certain image of the CIA or a certain perspective on facts of a given issue. I think it's very plausible and very actually just likely that there are. And when you think about if you've seen a lot of these YouTube channels and podcasts, you know that there's only a small handful of people going and speaking and saying, I was a CIA agent. They're really speaking on behalf of the CIA and the CIA knowledge. Do you think that intelligence agents of today's world are not keeping a pulse on what's going on in social media? Do you think they're not aware of the impact that YouTube videos and podcasts and social media has on the public's perception of events and on their perception of the CIA? So to think that they're not, aware of someone like Andrew Bustamante or the others, I think is very nearsighted. And so in conclusion, it's very plausible that someone like Andrew Bustamante is working for the CIA still and is basically fulfilling this role of, hey, be this CIA authority that pops up on all of these channels, look like you're kind of cool or whatever with the long hair and the bandana, and basically just like, we want you to toe this line, and on certain issues we want you to be that voice of like steering people away from digging deeper or thinking conspiratorially. And after this clip I just watched today about the Trump assassination attempt, I actually think it's more likely that this guy is compromised or is working for the CIA. And I'm going to show you why. On this podcast, the Diary of a CEO clips. And again, he could say this on any one of these millions of subscriber podcasts. This just happened to be the one that just posted yesterday. And he was asked about the Trump assassination attempt. And he asked him, do you think it could be a conspiracy? And, here, I'm going to play it for you. Bustamante is basically saying how he doesn't think that there's anything, crazy about the failure of the Secret Service. All right, so let's give it a listen here.
As soon as Donald Trump was shot, I called up one of my friends who's a Secret Service, a retired Secret Service officer, and I said to him that from my point of view, from what I understand about close protection, everything was done pretty close to right. There's always gaps at any kind of political rally. That's why they're dangerous. You can't make it 100% secure. That's why there's snipers on the roof. There's not snipers on the roof because they feel like the grounds are safe. There's snipers on the roof because they know that there's gaps. There's not Secret Service on the sides of the stage carrying guns because they think that they're safe. There's Secret Service on the sides of the stage because they know that there's gaps. Of course there's gaps. You can't manage all risks. The person took a shot from over 400 feet. 400 feet is a long, difficult shot. Empirically, it's a long, difficult shot.
Keep that in mind. His premise of his argument here is that the shot that Thomas Crooks took from 400 feet away, 150 yards about, he said it is empirically a difficult shot. We're going to come back to that.
Even though the newspapers come out and say it's a turkey shoot or an easy shot or a standard shot or a basic shot, it is not. Any hunter out there will tell you 400 yards is a difficult shot, and you have to have a high-powered rifle built for that kind of distance to shoot that length. So there's all kinds of misinformation that's going around as people try to spin up a story. So for me, it was a real assassination attempt by a real person whose motives are still unknown.
So, yeah, and his point there, right? Misinformation. Well, Andrew, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that you're just doing your thing out there. But I do question you, man, because I mean, you literally just gave misinformation to a massive audience, probably 90+% of which, if not 99%, are not going to go fact check what you just said. They're just going to take your word for it and go, "Oh, it wasn't an easy shot," and the Secret Service wouldn't be expecting someone to shoot from within 150 yards, 400 feet, which he misspeaks in the sentence after that and calls it 400 yards, which even if it was 400 yards, as we'll see, is still not considered difficult by AR-15 standards. The rifle that Crooks used, an AR rifle. So anyway, let's dig into that. Okay, Bustamante literally just gave us misinformation and downplaying the main kind of crux of why people are questioning this, including the media, to their credit. How did this guy get on a roof 150 yards from the president? He was spotted 20 minutes before on the roof, apparently. At least 2 full minutes of him with the rifle and them knowing he was there, having it aimed. Him being spotted at the entrance of the event with a rangefinder, acting suspiciously. Climbing up on the roof in front of everyone and people shouting it, right? One thing after another. 2 sets of snipers on the roof facing out, ready, and this guy being on the roof 150 yards away. He's downplaying all that by saying there's gaps. There's gaps in the Secret Service, and the Secret Service wouldn't normally expect someone to be able to shoot someone from 400 feet away, 150 yards away. Well, a little bit of research that takes about 5 to 10 minutes can show us that he's wrong. Okay? It's been confirmed that the weapon Thomas Crooks used was an assault rifle. Now, I wasn't able to find exactly which one, but the most common one is the AR-15. Here is from a website, railscales.us. It's like a hunting, as he said, any hunter can tell you. It's like a hunting and rifle enthusiast website. And here we go, right? Shooting distances based on skill and product. AR-15, beginner. With basic equipment, a new shooter might find effective accuracy up to 100 to 200 yards. So Thomas Crooks shot from within 150. So clearly, this is with an AR rifle, which is accessible to the average person, like Thomas Crooks. 150 yards is a beginner's level. So we would think that the Secret Service would be aware of this and would be protecting the perimeter at least up to 200 yards. Intermediate, 300 to 500 yards. So, and advanced is from 600 up to 800 yards. Okay? Now, if you're wanting to protect a presidential nominee from an assassination attempt, you have to at least assume that there's a chance that an advanced shooter could set up somewhere that you can't see well within 800 yards. And you better make sure that that can't happen, because otherwise they're just going to knock off the president, right? I mean, Crooks was 150 yards. That's a beginner level. So again, directly refuting Andrew's claim that it's empirically a difficult shot and that any hunter will tell you it's a difficult shot. Okay, let's go to another source. This is from blackrifledepot.com, a rifle manufacturing or dealership website, okay, giving information about this. Again, how accurate is the AR-15? And we can see how its accuracy range, 400 to 600 meters. That's about in the same range as yards. So well over Thomas Crooks's range. 800 meters, 1,500 meters, 1,600 meters. Even the smallest caliber, right, or whatever this is. I'm not big on a rifle technical terms. Would be within the range of the accuracy range within the AR-15 for Thomas Crooks distance. So again, clearly this is at odds with what Andrew Bustamante is telling us, and you can go on and on. Here's at tacticalgear.com is telling us that shooting accurately behind about 500 meters is tough. Okay, that's about 500 or so yards. Again, sorry for being repetitive here, but we need to drive this home. Crooks was 150 yards, okay? And Bustamante is saying that's empirically a difficult shot. Here's our third source saying that it's not. And that, difficult is when you start to get past about 500. And then just, one more, another Mossy Oak, rifle gear website saying the same thing, right? Long range shooting as defined by the NRA, that's the National Rifle Association, is 1,000 yards. Mid-range is 600 yards. Thomas Crooks was at 150. So if you have any common sense and you're the Secret Service trying to protect a presidential nominee from being assassinated, I would think you'd be aware that a skilled long-range shooter could knock off the president from as much as 1,000 yards. Crooks was at 150. And the CIA agent on the Huge Audience podcast for the people that are starting to process this event and, don't trust the official narrative, he's going to make probably millions of people walk away from this and go, oh, no, the Secret Service wouldn't have been prepared for someone shooting from that far. That's a really difficult shot and is out of the distance of protection. But again, long range is 1,000 yards as defined by the NRA. And we actually have another piece of information to corroborate this. And I'm going to pull it in here. We look here, and here is a quote from, Andrew Bustamante. Sorry about that. Let's get this back here. Andrew Bustamante says he called his friend who was a former Secret Service officer. Okay, but here in a USA Today article, we see a former director of the Secret Service, Julia Pearson, told USA Today that having a security perimeter for snipers is part of the standard protocol. And actually, here she says, 1,000 yards is the sniper capability that we have a concern about for the president. That would make sense, right? We just read that the NRA identifies a long range as 1,000 yards, so that'd be a good starting point, right? And here she says, former director of the Secret Service, Mr. Bustamante, anything that's within that range that is a professional, makeable shot. Okay? And just to drive it home once again, when you think about it, it's a football field and a half, Thomas Crooks' distance. And that is a makeable shot by an individual. So there you have it. Okay, I think we've done a good job here at proving that former CIA agent and, YouTube star Andrew Bustamante, potential CIA plant, I think, is telling us that it's an empirically difficult shot. We can see here that it's not. It's identified as beginner. It's identified as well within the range, and by a former Secret Service director saying that it's well within the range of where the president or the person that they're protecting is supposed to be secured for. So again, yeah, this guy got 150 yards on the roof facing the damn president. And here's the CIA agent telling us that there's nothing abnormal about that, and saying literally that they did a great job. Red flag to me. And that was the whole point I wanted to make this video, is one, to just show how we can do a little bit of basic research, but also to show, we can't just trust these former CIA agents going on and telling us, how we should think about things. Because in this case, like, he clearly just gave misinformation, and a very significant misinformation about a very, I think, significant current event. And just to finish off on, if you listen to the rest of this clip, the interviewer goes on to say, what about, is it possible that the CIA could have trained this Thomas Crooks, mind controlled him to do this? And to his credit, this is what I kind of touched on in my last video. And here's just a reference for you to go to. There are other sources you could look at. You could look at the CIA documentation yourself. You could look at other books that have covered it. But here's one of the better, more thorough books called The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, The CIA and Mind Control, The Secret History of the Behavioral Sciences. And let's just read the blurb real quick here. A Manchurian candidate is an unwitting assassin, brainwashed and programmed to kill. In this book, former State Department officer John Marks tells the explosive story of the CIA's highly secret program of experiments in mind control. And Marks worked up from thousands of pages of newly released documents, as well as interviews and behavioral science studies, producing a book that accomplished what 2 Senate committees could not. So in other words, this is a good reference point if you want to see that the very real documentation that the CIA, way back, we're talking between the 50s and 70s, developed a program to brainwash a person to carry out an assassination. And, I personally think that this is very possible in this whole Thomas Crooks incident. And I've talked about that in my last video. So anyway, I think that this is important. I think it's important to keep our eye on how this event is spun, and also hope that this example shows you that I think we really have to question these people that are given these large audiences on YouTube, especially when they have an official tie to a notoriously dishonest and manipulative agency like the CIA. And this is a really bad, example here, where he just is telling us confidently that the 150-yard shot from Thomas Crooks is an, quote, empirically difficult shot, and that Secret Service did everything right, when by simply doing a little research from 4 different, rifle manufacturing websites, that's a beginner range for the type of rifle that Crooks used. And this former Secret Service director said that it will be up to 1,000 yards to expect a lethal shot from. Okay, so he's either just full of it and pretending like he knows what he's talking about, he's misinformed, or he is just lying for public perception of this event. I'll let you decide what you think. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.